1. All right, everybody, welcome to another Thursday night, another live episode of The Good Life. Welcome. Super excited again. It's just 3 of us tonight. Kevin had he probably wouldn't mind us saying this, right? As the relationship guy, as the love guy, he had some relationship things to tend to tonight. So it's just gonna be us 3, but we're gonna rock out tonight. Kobi, Stu, how you guys doing tonight, man?
Chilling.
Awesome.
Doing great. Got some Kiwi going here strong. Shout out my Australian. Anyway.
Hey, that's going to be our running thing again, guys. Our running thing is that Kobi is always eating something. Most likely it's going to be some fruit, but he is always eating something. So that's going to be our thing. Tonight it's a kiwi.
It's actually 8 kiwis.
Oh, well, there we go. 8 kiwis instead of just 1. But either way, hopefully, again, welcome on everybody. Hopefully you guys got a lot of nuggets out of last week. Last week, Kobi, you killed it, diving deep into health and some of those myths that we were talking about and that you got a chance to talk about. Funny enough, and one quote that stood out that I think, we had sent over to you and you had said it a couple of times is, when's the last time you saw a commercial for fruit, right? When's the last time? Honestly, you should be making a commercial right now. This could be a commercial for Kiwi. If you just throw a jingle in here, I think we'd be good, right? But either way, you're crushing it last week. This week, guys, we're jumping into my favorite topic, which happens to be money and how that impacts impacts our life and how it is an integral part of the good life. We've all heard different types of sayings that money doesn't buy happiness, or right, money doesn't grow, or money is the root of all evil, or any of these things that you might have heard before, that might kind of devalue money's place in your life. We're here to kind of talk a different talk, because it's incredibly important to make sure that you have a solid financial foundation to get to any of the places that you really want to be honest. And that's, my opinion, but I'm sure these guys would agree with me. And I'm sure many of you out there would also agree that having that financial foundation is incredibly important. So, obviously that's what I do in my day-to-day work. It's really helping people understand how to get ahead financially. No one teaches us about money, right? We can all agree on that. Most people either learn their money habits from their parents or their peers. That's where we really get our money education. Now, you're starting to see a little bit more talk about financial literacy and getting courses or getting it into, kids' hands or putting it into schools. You're starting to hear it a lot more because we're really seeing how important it is. But at the end of the day, for those of us that are our age or even old, there was no financial literacy. There was no financial training. It was kind of like the blind leading the blind, and you just figured it out yourself. You just kind of fell on your face, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that again, so let me try something different. And that's how we kind of learn money. We're here to change that for you. So tonight, gonna drop some nuggets, but really just want to have a little bit more of a conversation. For all of you joining us on YouTube, press that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. Again, we want people to be able to see this information and add value to them. So that's the way that happens. If you have a question, if you're joining us live on Facebook or on LinkedIn, if you have a question, put your question in the chat. Tonight, I'll be answering some money questions. So if you know anyone that wants to have the conversation about money, tell them, send them this live, tell them to share it and jump on and ask their question. But we're going to dive in tonight. Like I said, I'm going to have a little bit more of a conversation with these gentlemen, and we're just going to bounce on some topics when it comes to money. So let's start off. I want both of you guys to kind of chime in on this. Talk to me about your kind of growing up money experience, right? Because this is where I start a lot of times with people is at childhood. What was like your first recollection of money, right? Like, how did you grow up with it? What were you attached to, or what were the messages you were hearing? Stu, jump in and give me your thoughts, man.
Yeah, so I was super lucky and when it comes to finances and just a lot, like my dad spent a lot of time with me as a kid, like talking to me about this stuff.
Mm.
And I remember being like so bored when I was that young. I was like, what does this matter? I want to go play outside. Like, look, you have a job, I don't. Can you just get the donut? Like stuff like that. And it was I mean, it was a really good time. Like my dad started off early with that. And it was interesting growing up with my folks because they were like heavily influenced by parents that were like alive during the time of the Great Depression. So like they were very like, fiscal and very like conservative with all of their money choices. Like they really wanted to like play it safe and kind of plan for retirement, etc. And then so like that was like the first main influence on my life when it came to money, right? And that was at a pretty young age, like trying to like, well, not trying to, like actually moving forward and cutting the grass around the neighborhood, like to raise money and stuff. And we lived in the country, so it wasn't flat.
Right.
It was like serious inclines at some point that we had to like lower the lawnmower down and pull it back up. And so that was like a pretty big experience in like working for your money. So that really sent me down that path. And then the second thing that influenced me was the Scouts. Actually, they have a lot of like time management, personal management stuff, and they actually like really start to teach you at a young age about how to like balance a checkbook, how to take care of different things. So I had a pretty strong foundation growing up in the regards of planning for retirement. I was very much sent down that path.
That's awesome, man. Like, I've heard that from other people too that were in like the Boy Scouts that like you have a little bit more of like a foundational knowledge of just, I feel like life. I think that's what Boy Scouts was for, right? Like it's just, making fires and like just foundational things that like you feel like you need to know, but money being one of those things. Mm-hmm. How did they break that down for you? If you remember, like how were they talking about money back then?
Well, I think the fundamental element that was taught in both the Scouts and for my folks was, spend less money than you make, period. Like at the end of the day, like the very fundamental concept. And it sounds so obvious to mention that, but I know so many people that like, they say they get that concept, but like you can kind of see it in their lifestyle. Like you obviously aren't practicing that concept, whether you fully understand it or not, whatever, you're making a choice at some level that, you're not really full in on it. And I think that from such an early age really made me like hold on and save and allow me to do something crazy, like jump off the corporate ladder and just fucking, just take a whack at it.
That's right.
So it allowed me a lot more financial freedom, which, by the way, is what leads me to like, I think the biggest thing that I love about the biggest realization I have about money recently is that money is choices. It's not evil, as you kind of alluded to earlier. And I actually had a lot of problems with that when I first started being an entrepreneur. I had a lot of that programming, like, money is evil, which is really weird that even develops. Love to go into that further if you want to. But anyways, that's kind of my background. It really set me up like a solid foundation. We looked at like Excel sheets, like they talked to me about taxes. Like obviously I didn't know how to like, fill out my tax forms when I was in middle school, but at least I knew like just the fundamentals of like, okay, you have to be prepared because they're going to ask for it this time of year. And,
right.
So
that's funny, right? Like if you think about it, like when do we learn about taxes, right? Like who teaches, like when did you just understand like, oh, one day I got to pay taxes, right? That has to be taught.
Yeah.
And that's a big one. You said something that was also really big, and I see Lori just said it, right? Like money is choices.
Hey, Lori.
I know, right? Shout out to Lori. What's up?
Yeah.
Glad you're here. But yeah, money is choices. I say money is options, right? Mm-hmm. Like money gives you options. That's as simple as we can make it, right? Money is a tool. And it gives you options. It gives you choices. It gives you the ability to make better decisions if you have more of it and more understanding of it. So that was spot on, Stu. And that's good to hear about, just again, recalling how we are programmed or how we start off our money journey or have that money mindset really, really important. So
yeah, because it was not produced or mentioned in education at all. So yeah. I thought that was always very interesting. But yeah,
big deal, man. Kobi, jump in, man. What's your like kind of money recollection? Like, how'd you grow up with it?
Yeah, yeah. So I think we make a great group here, man, because we got a quite a wide range of experiences. My experience was probably the direct opposite of yours, Stu. In that nobody ever talked to me about money. In fact, it was like if I needed anything, if I wanted anything, it was like you pray about that. You go ahead and pray, my brother. Maybe the good Lord will deliver, you know, and maybe showed up, but most of the time, you know, kept my expectations real low. This didn't, and that was really the conversation about money. Like, do you have enough for tomorrow? Do you have enough for today? Right. So really, there was no planning. Right. There was no, you know, there was a scarcity mindset. It was more, and I wouldn't necessarily, you know, yeah, scarcity mindset in the sense of like there's no, you know, let's get through what we got to get through today. And of course, I'm speaking to like the middle to lower bracket immigrant family, you know, kind of building something new. So first generation, really like trying to get established, you know. So now I have the opportunity to make sure my kids grow up with solid money knowledge, you know. But mine came from trial by fire. Everything I learned by fire, you know. So I actually have a little piece, hopefully at some point will be published here, but it's called How I Got My Master's in the Streets. And I literally got my master's in the streets when it comes to this stuff. So and it comes from trial and error. Like you know, when do you do taxes? Well, shoot. Hey, buddy, haven't done your taxes yet. What's going on? Oh, I should figure that out. And then I figure it out, right? How to handle money. So for me, I really learned about money, you know, from not from my parents or my peers, but I got my behaviors around money from my peers and my parents for sure, right? Because I never had, but I was always around people who did. So for me, it was, you know, whatever, you know, do the best we can, but you know, you still, whatever you had, you take really good care of it, you know, so that you still can show up. So when I went off to college and everything, I was probably financially responsible for myself, probably like 15 on.
Okay.
If you know, just in terms of like the normal like American life, if you will.
Kobi, real quick.
And we knew each other when you were that age. That's cool.
Yeah. So at that point, I was pretty much 100%. Because I was on scholarship. Stu, when we knew each other. Go ahead.
I was gonna say real quick, because that's different from a lot of people. And again, you being more of that, like you said, the kind of the immigrant mindset, like being kind of financially responsible at 15. I know 23-year-olds that aren't financially responsible, meaning like they can't pay their own bills and things. Like how was that different? Like, what did you see in that time that made you say like, hey, at 15, like, I know I got to handle myself?
Yeah. Because I knew my parents didn't have it. And I knew if they had it, then they had already given it. Right. So it wasn't like they were withholding. It wasn't like they just, you know, my dad worked 3 jobs for most of my growing up. No, one of my jobs was to make sure that he was on track in terms of getting to work, right? So I would wake him up. I'd make sure he's got his stuff all set, ready to go. It's quite the process. And so, I mean, I saw my parents working hard, right? So for me, like, it wasn't a question of like working hard to make more. It's a question of, all right, they're setting the table so that my siblings and I at some point can eat, right? And so for me, it became very clear. And I was always motivated by that from like 8 on, right? From when we relocated from the Ghana to the US, it was always with the intention of like helping others, right? So that was always the mindset, is to earn more to help others. So that was, you know, kind of early childhood. And how I became aware is, I mean, it clearly wasn't there. So I didn't know how I was going to go to college, and I definitely didn't want the same for my siblings and you know, moving forward. But for me, honestly, I wouldn't trade that for anything, because I think, again, I said my master's in the streets because it really forced me to be 100% responsible for myself at all times. So 15 moving forward, I knew that I had to get my own bread. I had to get my own money. I had to learn how to manage it. So I would do my own research and go to the library and pick up my books, right? So I used to live near a library, so I would go and like pick up all these different financial books and try to kind of wade my way around. When I started earning income, that's when I could actually practice those sort of principles, right? So I had a lawn mowing business, obviously picked up a training business, and then that was probably what I most consistent moving forward. Where I really learned about money is post-college, where life smacked me in the face.
I think that's most of us though, Kobi, right? Like most of us really understand money when we get a little bit older and we really have some responsibilities and bills and debts and all types of expenses that pop up randomly, and then all these things start happening, and then you start to really understand, like, right? Like I need to understand what's going on here, right? I really need to understand. And
absolutely,
man, you said a lot of key things. That Damon John wrote a book called The Power of Broke, and people don't understand how powerful it is to actually come from a place of lack. If you can correct your mindset, and I'm so glad we can have these conversations about it, right?
That's huge.
If you can fix your mindset through that time, if you can develop a growth mindset and really start to develop, there's nothing more powerful than coming from a place of not having, because you understand what it's like. You understand what you don't want, right? It creates that grind, that hustle, that like you said, like, I know my parents aren't going to have it. So like, what's the option here? Right. You learn that lesson very, very early in life when you come from not having much. And like I said, the key is, can you be aware of it? And can you switch your mindset to really start to understand, how to get better, how to make it happen. So that's super powerful, super powerful. Stu, did you have something you want to jump in?
Like a million things. Kobi, I think your story is fascinating, bro. Because like, I can only imagine, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be that age. I mean, like, we were busy, man. I mean, we had sports, we had school, we had jazz band, and like at the same time, like you finding the time to do that and look forward at that age is so just bad. Can I say that?
Yeah, dude. Right? There's no censoring on here. You got it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, dude, just badass as shit. And
you just went directly the other way.
I don't start checking myself. So, but I think what's so cool is the thing that you mentioned in there, Chris, was the things that, like, it's just powerful when you come from that place of lack. And I think that like Kobi, for you to have done that, you would have had to have very quickly at a young age assessed everything around you and the ideology around money at such a young age, and then begin to start rewriting that. And what's cool is you're actually so young that, and if you weren't being exposed to that, like you have a little bit of a clean slate, but you still have a lot of like Chris said, like mindset stuff, and it just shows how much you can learn and you can figure out. It's fascinating, man.
It's a big deal. Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Danette on LinkedIn said, that she loved what you just said, Kobi, but she asked the question, like, did it or does it make it difficult to save and build wealth if you're supporting others? I have thoughts on that, but dive in, Kobi. Tell me your experience a little bit more. And thank you for that question, Danette. Thanks for being on.
That's big.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for your question, Danette. Is it make it more difficult? I think there's two things happening here. I think there's a spiritual component, there's an intent component, there's a relationship with money component and energy question, and then the actual mechanics of how you're balancing your books, right? So yes, in the actual mechanics of how you're balancing your books, absolutely. Because I do believe in the principle of filling your cup and going into your outer rings. This is rings, by the way. Just like a ripple in the water, right? It starts here and then it expands into abundance. So yeah, there is a way to make sure your ship isn't sinking. But I don't think you have to come from a place of scarcity or a place of You know, I got to make sure I'm good and whatnot. Because truthfully, and on the more the energy and relationship money side of it, I think you can only do but three things with money, all right? Three things with money, right? You can save it, spend it, give it. I mean, what else can you do with money? Invest it, right? Yeah. So let's invest, save, right? So at the end of the day, I think, you know, the goal is to run through those four pretty quickly, right? And the most fun you can have with money at the end of the day is to invest in somebody else, other people, right? And enriching their lives. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
That's big. It's big. I have a bunch of things to that, and I agree with all those things that you said. I'll plug one of my buddies. He might be watching on LinkedIn, or hopefully he sees this. Matt Gardner wrote a book called The 4 Money Bears, and it's for children to understand money. And those are the 4 things. Those are the 4 bears. There's spender bear, there's giver bear, there's saver bear, and there's investor bear. My daughter's 3. She already knows all the bears. If I show it right, like, you know, she'll say investor bear, saver bear, like she knows all of them. But those are the 4 things that you can do with money: is spend it, give it, save it, or invest it, right? And all of those things are important in your financial life. To kind of steer a little bit into the next question, I'm going to answer it in 2 different ways, because I hear this a lot. Again, as this is my profession and I get a chance to talk to a lot of people about money, there's a couple ways I'll take it. One, the secret to wealth building is in giving. People don't know that. But the secret to building wealth is actually in giving. The more that you give, the more that you receive. It's exactly what you were saying, Kobi, about the energy. Like, that's actually what happens. Okay. Now, on the other side of that, I give the example, and I tell this to a lot of people. You know, when you're flying on the plane and the stewardess, and right before you take off, they have the little saying that says, hey, if we lose cabin pressure and the mask drops, you're sitting next to your child. What do they say? They say, put your mask on first before you put it on your child, right? Now, for most people, that's counterintuitive. If you have a child and the plane's right, like there's a real serious problem, you're going to protect your child. It's just kind of how it works in nature. The reason they have to tell you that is because if you don't put your mask on, you can't help your child.
Yeah.
That's the same exact thing with money, right? So there is a place that, again, the secret to wealth is in giving, but you have to put your mask on first in order to be able to help someone else. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to help anyone over the long haul. Right? You might be able to give a little here, give a little there. It might make you feel good. But if your mask is not securely on, meaning you're not at a financial foundation, right? You're not at a place where you have savings or you understand your money, your cash flow is good. If you're not at that place, it's very difficult to secure someone else's mask if yours isn't. Right? So bunch of different ways to take that. But Stu, jump in if you had something to add to that.
Well, you know, it's something that you hear a lot about in like theoretical discussion. I love this question so much. Like, you hear about this a lot. Like, is it harder to build your own wealth when you're giving away? And I think I like to imagine it like if you're growing and becoming more stable and really like gaining like momentum when it comes to finances at a faster rate than you're giving out, I think you're going to be okay. If you are, every time you grow your assets or you get some cash flow and you immediately get rid of it, but you don't keep any to save, you don't keep any to invest, then it's kind of that same situation. Put your own mask on first. I actually love that phrase because it was referenced in one of Logic, one of my favorite artists, one of his songs. He literally like screams out, he pauses and is like, "Lil, seriously, put your own mask on first." And from his perspective, when he started like really rising as an artist, there were a lot of people coming to him like, "Hey, can you help me out with finances? Can you help me out with finance?" And he had to like set boundaries. And I think that's what it is. It's not like a yes or no. Do I give to others or not? It's like you have to find the right boundary that allows you to grow, so you can keep, you know, that ripple effect going out, like Kobi was saying. But you're not like, you know, you're not really inhibiting yourself. You got to find that balance.
Big deal. That's it, man.
And if I may, Chris, piggyback on that for both of, you know, I'm a big reader, actually a big listener. I listen and then I read if it's good. But four spiritual laws of prosperity, Edwin Gaines. That's my recommendation right there. Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines. This is exactly what she touches on. I think it's huge, and one of them is given. And it's I think there are some tested and tried principles that luckily my parents did introduce me to the key principle, which is the principle of tithing. So I think my parents actually gave me hustle and they gave me tithing. So we good, baby. We good.
that is a whole, and I don't know if we're going to dive into that on this week, but for sure, one of the weeks that we dive into money, I will bring in the tithing aspect.
What does that mean? I'm not familiar with that term.
Yeah. So, as a Christian, right, as a follower of Christ, we talk a lot about tithing, and says a lot in the Bible about tithing, which is the 10th, which is your first 10% of what comes in should go back to God, right? Should go back.
And good tithing too. Okay, that makes sense.
And there's a real spiritual aspect to it. Again, for those that like maybe aren't as connected in their faith or in, and I'm not sure of other religions or things like that. But in Christianity, I'll tell you that like the reason why we tithe is not because we feel like God needs our money. It's more because it allows us to submit, to say that like, listen, everything that comes in is like, it came from you. So at the end of the day, you're owed this, and I can now receive the rest. And he continues to bless and pour on top of it. It's right. You kind of have to be real connected in your spirituality to understand it. But just like Kobi said, it's one of the reasons why I feel like I do well financially, is because I know that like all of my blessings have come from the Lord. Right. And so I'm going to continue to tithe first, and then the rest of mine gets multiplied. So like I said, I don't know if this is this week, but for sure, we'll dive into that topic around money as well. Danette also said on here, Kobi, said that she's second generation West Indian American. So she struggles with building her own wealth and supporting others. So
to finish up and to also connect to the question or the new statement by Danette is Danette, pick up that book. Huge. Chris, that book also dives into tithing quite a bit. And I love the way that she talks about tithing, because she has a deep religious understanding of tithing. But she also, not just her, but other folks in other areas connect tithing. Tithing in and of itself is older than religion. Tithing is so fundamental. You can relate it to just agriculture, right? The rotation of the land. You can relate it to health in terms of breathing. You can relate it to food. You can relate it to, it is everything, everywhere. And I love how she expands it beyond to giving 10% back to the place where you get your spiritual food, right? Where do you get your spiritual food? So that's great. But anyway, I think it's one that I appreciate it quite a bit, as coming from, I'm a PK, as a lot of you know, may or may not know. Pastor's kid.
I didn't even know that, bro. Like that changes this whole dynamic.
Yeah. So my knowledge in terms of the text is deeper than most and the average. But what I've also done too is in my seeking my own legs to stand on rather than what my parents said or believe or did. I found that the principles that I was at some point in my life running away from were actually abundant everywhere else. So prodigal son came home. But I say that to say 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines.
I think we gotta type that up. Say it one more time. 4 spiritual laws.
The 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwin Gaines. And that's the one right there.
Edwin Gaines.
Gaines, yeah, like Gaines, literally. Gotcha. I think. Yeah.
Cool.
Listen, Jeff Bezos got you as soon as you start typing it in on Amazon.
I think
that's that's it right there. It's a great one. So, but to go back to kind of learning about money and putting up my transformation story in terms of money, and I obviously have a ton more to learn because as I keep growing, but from where I've been, was coming out of college and going through the process of getting completely debt free, student loans, car loans, you name it, I had it. Get completely free, build up 3 to 6 months of expenses, and then start to really play the wealth game. So to the question, I think building wealth is kind of like part 2 in my head. So you build a foundation first, but building wealth to me is kind of like part 2, in the sense of a lot of people that I know need to first do what I did to get out of debt and to have the foundation to move on. And obviously Chris is a lot more to this.
Is that?
I just see it as like, when I think wealth, I'm thinking. Now go ahead, Chris.
I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head. It's the number one thing I preach, right? Because most people, is how I explain it, most people are trying to be at a 201 level of their financial life when they really are on a 101 level, right? And so 101 becomes foundational things that you need in place in order to build wealth. Most people hear, and this is the good and the good and the bad of social media, because we think that wealth can be created very quickly. We think if you just invest a bunch and put it in the right investments, like, you make it, right? And that often is not the way that it works at all. Building wealth, I think Warren Buffett says, is the reason why most people don't build wealth is because they want to do it fast and make it exciting. But building wealth is slow and boring.
Yep.
Right. And
nobody wants to get rich slow. That's the
exactly.
Quote.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get rich slow.
It's true. It's true. And so where I sit, and what you're saying, Kobi, is the same thing that I teach people is, listen, let's make sure. I look at 6 areas specifically. This is what I do specifically. I look at, where's your cash flow? How much is coming in? How much is going out? Back to what you said in the beginning. I think, was it Stu that you said, like, spend less than you make? No, that was you, Kobi, right? Spending less than you make. Yeah. Oh, no, it was Stu. Yeah. So spending less than you make. Very simple concept. People don't practice it though, right? Very, very, like, people just don't practice it. But that's why we have to look at your cash flow. If your expenses are higher than your income, we already have a problem. You shouldn't be investing or doing all these things. Like, you have a foundational problem. Yeah. Or if that number is very low, like some people are working off of a discretionary income of $200 or right. I know plenty of people that make 200 grand and their expenses are 200 grand. It's all the same deal, right? So we have to look at cash flow, number 1, 2, that short-term savings, just like Kobi said, 3 to 6 months worth of your income, but really 6 to 12 months, because that's a better foundation. I heard this, I think, in a Clubhouse room earlier, that someone was saying, like, you have to create a new zero for yourself, right? Your new zero, or your new, like, even, is 6 months worth of your expenses in the bank. That's your zero. If you ever go below that, it becomes negative, right? So that becomes your standard, so that you can go invest and do.
That's a great way of putting it. A new zero.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
So that becomes foundational as well. Then the debt piece, like Kobi said, if you're sitting in high credit card debt or high interest debts, well, you got to get rid of that before you go off and try to invest, right? And then there's some, protection pieces that we also look at foundationally. Your insurances, health insurance, life insurance, right? And then your retirement aspect. What are you doing? Do you have a retirement account? Do you have something that you're putting away money long-term that you're not going to touch, but it is gaining some form of interest? That's not fully investments, right? Your midterm investments, or your, real estate, or any of those things. That's just, are you socking something away long-term that's getting you some interest? And then, do you have the estate plan pulled together? That's like a will and a trust. So that's what I call foundational things, right? That's foundational. None of that stuff has to do with credit or interest, like, or investments. That's 201, right? That's financial 201. And people are on the 101 level, and they don't want to recognize that they're on the 101 level, because typically social media, people around, especially now especially during 2020 and the pandemic, where sports betting went high, and then stocks went high, and then gambling got bigger, and then the lottery gets bigger, and all these like get rich quick things that are legal, right? The legal get rich quick scams that are out there, right? Like they just, all of a sudden people just started diving into those, neglecting their foundation. And we're going to see, right? We're going to see some ramifications from this. People are over leveraged in the stock market. They're over leveraged in certain places. And, you know, I'm privy enough. I get a chance to lift up the hood under a lot of Americans' kind of personal financial life. And what it looks like on the outside isn't always what it looks like on the inside. And people are really sitting kind of in the same place, like just not having that foundation. So that is key. That is key. Stu, what did you have to that, man? Did that answer some of your something that you were thinking about?
Oh man, I mean, I'm just really enjoying this reminder, because, you know, for me, I had my zero, and I've allowed myself to compromise that zero to go off on this adventure. So it's interesting because I'm constantly thinking, what is my pull the cord, eject? I'm being dramatic. New zero. Like, when do I actually kind of go back and reconsider, like, you know, corporate life or like a more conservative route or a part-time job? Because for me, like, I'm all in. And Chris, I was talking to you about this, and Kobi as well. Man, you know, you get a year into something you're committed to, like, you start to see some results. Like, we're getting there. But is it what I made? Is it? No, it's not. That's okay. That's okay. So it's nice to hear this, because it's a good reminder for me. Like, right now, my zero is in flux, and that's, I think, what causes my dad a little bit of anxiety. But it's just such a fundamental principle that I'm glad that we've kind of drilled back down to that, because sometimes you catch yourself. You guys are fully aware of this. Like, when you start thinking outside the box with, you know, providing value and receiving energy, receiving money in return, you start thinking of all these different types of ways. But it can get very easy to be thinking about that 201 stuff and forget all of a sudden, like, some of that 101 information. So yeah, powerful stuff. Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
It's big.
Really dope.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kobe.
Yeah, Stu, I think all of us are entrepreneurs here in different stages in our career as entrepreneurs. So I think later on, something I like to speak on, I like all of us to, another topic one is kind of how to make that jump. All right. Having done it now, I got tips on tips on tips. I'm sure you guys do as well. Some oh no, and some yes, you need to do that yesterday. So I think there's a lot of value we can really bring there.
What's funny is my fault, Kobe.
Go ahead.
But I was gonna say what's funny is this entrepreneur talk kind of goes back to that power of broke, right? Like, people don't understand that before you every entrepreneur has the story that before you really take off, you hit the bottom. Like, you hit the bottom. It's like a part of the process, right? It's just
funny, baby.
It's just the way it goes. People don't get it, but like, and funny enough, right? We can bring this in, the fear, right? And one of the things I was going to talk about tonight, but I'm glad we're having this conversation. But yeah, the fears that start to come in and the emotions that come in when you are about to, or you feel like you're about to hit a bottom, or all the money's going out, or right, bills are piling up, or whatever starts happening to you. Normally, from a financial standpoint, you have these emotional things that start to happen because you've overvalued the money. And one of the things that I found in my own journey, and you guys can probably speak to this too, is when you really get to that bottom point and you don't have the money, and like the bank account's negative. I don't know if you guys have been there. I've for sure been there, right? When the bank account's negative and all those things, you have to start to look at something other than money. That's what starts to happen, right? Like, you have to shift your focus, because if you just are thinking about money, like, it'll drive you crazy because you don't have it, and you get very emotional. Then you think about, for us entrepreneurs, you think about going back to get the job, or you think about the easy money that can come in and it shifts your business. And then all of a sudden you're taking these shortcuts and it's not building you what you want because all the emotions start coming in. So really, when you hit that rock bottom place, you're really getting to a place of learning yourself and what's really important to you, so that you can push the money to the side, because then when you really start to grow and learn the value that you can add and all of those things, and you start having that growth mindset, then the money comes back to you. And I think every entrepreneur has to learn that lesson at some point.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Like
Chris,
when you hit that low point. Oh, go ahead, Kobe.
Now I gotta get this out before I lose it, man. This is one of those you gotta catch right away. So this all goes back to I'm a connections across the board type of guy. So I'm always looking for, they try to pin you and say, oh, you're math or science and you're English, and no, I was all the above in terms of connecting across the board. When I really look at this, I said something last call that I think really shows up here as well, is that the first real currency was energy, and we replaced money with that. And that's where you get the two people that split, that go, oh, money is really bad. And those are like, yeah, well, it's kind of the way it is, right? Nothing is inherently bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nothing is inherently bad. It just comes down to what works and what doesn't work. What have we agreed on? What haven't we agreed on? Was the agreement broken? Was it not broken? Right? So that's, your girl wasn't mad that you cheated. Is that you lied about cheating, right? It's
probably the cheating part too, bro. It's probably the cheating part too. Like, she probably has a couple things.
Okay, fine, that one too. But just the sentiment, the analogy that is what I'm making, and I look at it, and then I also look at like professional athletes or anything that you do professional, that you're doing something to earn money. I was looking at reading the Oxygen Advantage, which everybody should definitely take a look at. But he talks about it towards the end of how he works with a lot of professional athletes who have lost the joy for the game, right? Mm-hmm. So the original currency was the joy, was the energy. Once you replace the money, they get confused. And it's not that the money is bad, it's that they lost the original energy behind it. It's the same thing for entrepreneurs, in my opinion. You were an entrepreneur first for something other than money. When you bring the money in and you get too fixated on the money, or in terms of whether you have it or you don't have it, or right, both sides of being fixated on it, then you lose that joy, you lose that energy for what it is that you were doing in the first place, and the money will not follow.
Yeah, I think
that doesn't mean that it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to piggyback on that, and then I'll let you jump in, Stu. But I think a lot of times, Kobe, when we do step into that world of entrepreneurship, we put too much value on money because we're fearful, because we're normally leaving a job. Mm-hmm. We're leaving steady income, and that's all we've known. And then we branch out to do this entrepreneurial thing. And the thing that's on our brain the most is money. We think we have a good idea. We are passionate about what we do. That's why we started. Or maybe we're not passionate, but we see it as like something we can add value to or whatever. But we overvalue money when we're transitioning from employee to entrepreneur. And that's that lesson that has to be learned by hitting rock bottom, is that no, it's not about this money. It's not, right? Like, it's about all of the things that you said you wanted to build, the people you wanted to help, right? The value you wanted to add. And when you have no money, that's how you learn what those things are and how you can deliver those things. So jump in there, Stu.
It's powerful stuff, guys. I guess for me, what's kind of coming up right now is how, the way I used to have it, when I didn't have to worry about, like, I had a fixed amount of money that I was coming in, that I had in a spreadsheet. And in this spreadsheet, I had like my bills. Like, I'm telling you, I got all this from the scouts, Like, I had my bills in one column. That was a certain amount. I had like my cash flow, which was only, now it's not like gonna be like that ever again, but it was only my salary. And whatever else I had going on, I had it all like perfectly organized. Like, I was gonna make this much, that means I can do everything else. These were all my choices. And as soon as I jumped right off that train, scarcity hit me. Dude, I froze up. It actually worked out kind of well because the entire world shut down, which meant I couldn't go spend money partying like I usually did. So it actually kind of worked out pretty well for that. So I all of a sudden, I wasn't spending as much. I was in very like a scarcity mindset, and I didn't really realize what had happened. I was thinking that I was becoming more knowledgeable and more aware, which was true. But what I wasn't looking at was how much fear I had. It made me like needy. And you guys know this, like, you know, when you're starting a business and you have like a needy vibe about you, it's like, whoa, man, are you trying to provide me a service, or am I trying to provide you some help financially? Like, what is the deal here?
Mm-hmm.
So I felt that transformation. And then eventually you get to a place where you're like, dude, let's remember, like you guys said, like, let's remember why we got into this. We got into this to help people. And then all of a sudden the money doesn't become an issue. Like, then you have other ways, you take your mind off it. Like you said, you allow yourself to stop fixating on it. And that's when you begin to thrive. Because I think everybody I know that puts money at the top of their list, man, they just have so many like unattended to things in their life. But when you don't have money as the number one priority, you attend to those other things and realize that money is just like the energy currency of our world. It's not like the goal. It's not like to just sit in a room full of gold and like be King Midas and just have a great time. Like, so it's pretty cool. Anybody considering making that journey, like all three of us can speak to how powerful it is. Like, and you guys are starting to talk about the spiritual part of money, which I think would be a really, really great episode for us to do, because it really is powerful. You start bringing out so many like shadows. Like you really like, that's what I was going to say. Finally found it. Awesome. After this awesome rant, what I was going to say was, you see yourself for the first time, like really, really see yourself when you're at the bottom. You know who you are. And once you've been there and you know who you are, like things start to open up because you start to speak your voice and you start to be like exponentially more authentic, and it's crazy.
Pressure either busts pipes or makes diamonds, right? Pressure either busts pipes or makes diamonds. And too often people don't put enough like real pressure, like the real, like you said, getting to that place where it's just you and you. And the question is like, where am I going? What am I doing? Am I going up? Am I staying down here? What am I made of? Right?
Yeah. What are you made of? Absolutely.
That becomes the question in entrepreneurship. You know, we're diving into the side. That's what the question becomes. It's like, what are you made of? What is it that you say to yourself when you're at the lowest points? How do you keep it going? And yes, you have to shift away from thinking about money. You have to shift yourself away from that. And again, this goes back to that financial foundation. You probably shouldn't be jumping out, right? Let's give the context on the other side of this, right? Like you probably shouldn't be stepping out to start a business and leaving your job if you're in high debts and don't have savings. Not gonna be a smart thing. Because then, of course, like, by the way, anyone that's listening, we're not naive. We know you have bills, right? We all have bills. Like we understand. It's not like you don't need
bills. Don't stop when the salary does.
Exactly. They don't stop. It's just your focus, right? It's just, are you just focused on making money, or are you focused on building something that you said you wanted to be proud of, that was going to generate you income? Yes. But it's more about the mission, more about kind of why you're doing this and the people that you can help. And once you figure those things out, again, the money does come. The money does come. So, we've been having really good conversation on this.
I can't believe it's 50 minutes in.
I know, right? It's crazy. This is the good life, guys. This is the good life. When you get a chance to have these conversations about the real stuff, the stuff that people are really dealing with. Because again, for all of you that are listening, we know that you deal with some of these money questions, these fears, your mindset around money. It's foundational in you living this good life and you getting to the place where you are living life according to the way that you want it. You have life exactly where you want it. So yes, financially, you will need to get to a place to have everything that you want, right? And that's going to be, or at least need, and that's going to come with a level of, financial independence, financial freedom. Like it's just the way it goes. I never want to devalue what money can do. Right. You said it's not for just, living it up and spending it and partying and jets and all that type of stuff. It's not that. It's like when your aunt or uncle or parent is sick, like, do you have money to make sure they see the right doctor? People don't understand like that's the important part of it. when I have plenty of friends and business partners that I work with or that I'm in business with, that they'll give these stories over and over again. Had they not gotten to a high 6-figure income, had they not saved a bunch of money, had they not been investing, when that phone call came from their family member in the Philippines that needs $20,000 to bury their, like, who did they call? They called the person that was most financially responsible, and they had the money so they could go ahead and do that. Like, they saving someone's life with money, right? Like, it's all of the necessary things to live your best life. You will need a level of financial freedom to be able to do that. So we have to make sure that we are talking about these concepts and the things that are the myths. That's really kind of what I wanted to go into tonight, but we had a great conversation.
Yeah.
We're having a great conversation.
Part 2.
Yeah, for sure. Again, guys, everyone that's listening, like, we're going to do this every Thursday night, guys. Every Thursday, we're jumping on and we're going through the components of what we call the good life: health, wealth, love, and happiness. All of those things. How are we fixing our health? What are we doing to condition ourselves to have that energy and vitality like we talked about last week, right? What have we been lied to about regarding our health? Where are we making the wrong choices or just the uninformed choices, right? Like, where are we doing that? Same thing with our money, right? We've been programmed a certain way with money, depending on how you grew up. We heard from Kobi and Stu tonight talking about how they grew up and how it was different. Kobi got his education from the streets, right? Stu's dad and the Scouts kind of gave him his foundation. It's all different, but where they were able to go, how they started to learn these things, we can give insight to that, and that's going to help somebody else understand their money. And then, not to mention love. Kevin's not on tonight. Like I said, he had to deal with some relationship things, but at the end,
So one quick thing about Kevin. So Kevin frequently talks about how at one point when he was making his transition to starting up his own thing, he actually was homeless for a time. He was living out of his car, and that was his rock bottom. And that's when he got to, I know he would have loved to have talked about that tonight. So hit up Kevin for a little story on that as well. But yeah, I love how we all have such different stories for this, man.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And again, that's why we're doing this, because we want to make sure everyone's getting that value. It's important to kind of wrap up tonight a bit. It's just important to understand and learn more about money. And again, I think that one of the biggest things that you could take away from tonight, and I'll let you guys kind of add your last 2 cents as we kind of wrap this thing up, but like that financial foundation, your foundation is so important. Learning what that foundation looks like, understanding how to have savings, how to be out of debt, all of those things before you take that next leap, before you start investing big, before you open the business. All of those things are just incredibly important when it comes to money. So you guys jump in. What's some takeaways or something that you kind of want people to understand about this money thing? And again, this is just the first week. We're going to do this so many more weeks, but is there something that you took away from tonight or something that you want people to understand? Either one of you jump in, by the way.
Yeah, I'll hop right in. I think we hit a lot of really awesome points here tonight. I think my takeaway, and I hope what somebody takes away, is there's only 4 things you can do with money. Money is only a tool, all right? But learning to utilize it correctly and utilizing it well will give us the option, right? The freedom and the space to create. I'm all about creating the life you don't need a break from. To create the life you don't need a break from. We operate, though I say money is a secondary form of currency, we operate in a world that requires it, right? When you're docking your boat, right? And I also want you guys to pay attention to the words, right? And we can go into this for a much different episode, but talking about the words and how it applies and what it actually indicates and whatnot. But 4 things you can do: build your foundation, build your wealth, and I'd say biggest thing is like get some help, like get somebody, chat with somebody, right? Like there's no shame. Like we all come in with all these different types of ideologies. It's the same in health. We come with all these pre-programmed noise that we need to get out of our head so we can come at a new zero and create what you actually want to create. don't build on a cracked foundation. I always say that as well, because you come in with all these misunderstandings, you continue to just like push on without taking time to really solidify your foundation. You're creating maybe problems for the future. I also think this is obviously a much more obvious part of the legacy we leave for our loved ones. Although I think, we take it seriously. I'm very excited to continue this conversation because I have so many thoughts that came by. I took some notes here that I think we'll dive in much later and get more granular as we move on. But I'm excited to see you guys in the next Thursday, and I'll pass it on to Stu here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, I like how you said just, get help. Like, to me, that segues perfectly into teamwork. Like, this is a teamwork thing. Like, all three of us here learned about money in different ways. And Kobi already kind of pointed out, like, we had very different extremes. Like, I had like a very almost like, almost militant, because my dad's former National Guard. Like, we will learn money. Period. Like that is essential.
That actually explains a lot, Stu. Like the fact that he was like former military, like that says a lot about how he thinks about it. So.
Exactly. So, like, we all have different stories, and the way we kind of hear each other's perspectives is by talking about it. So like John said, like, get help, talk about it. Like, no matter whether your story is closer to Kobi, Chris, or Stu's about what they know and how they know it about money, like, figure it out. It is a fundamental building block. It is one of the reasons why it is a pillar of what we call the good life. Like, it is choices, it is freedom. And I think the biggest thing I want to leave everybody with is from personal experience. Like, when you control how you make your money, and when you love how you make your money, you will love your life. When you don't love how you make your money, you will not love your life. Or you will have to say, this is the part of the day I don't love, and I will try and make the most of everything else. So if you don't want to do that and have those two different lives, two different personalities, then find a way to love how you make your money.
Big
Love
deal, guys. That's huge. And I don't think enough people pay attention to that side of it. But we only get one life. Why are you spending it for 40 years, 40 hours a week, hating your life? Like, I would never think that would be something that you should do. And, again, I'm just one person, Kobi, Stu, we're just guys here chatting with you. But honestly, like, that's going to unlock a lot of things for you. It's going to unlock a lot of things if you can learn how to make money and enjoy what you do, like genuinely enjoy it. Man, life becomes a lot easier. Life becomes a lot easier. So, man, we said so much tonight. Again, what's funny is as you're going through that, like, I didn't even get a chance to share my story, really. Like, I was like, dang, I never actually shared like my story, but I guess we'll save that for another time. I'm a wealth guy anyway. Like, we'll have the conversation. But again, to sum it up, people pay for clarity, and all of us need clarity in our money. We all need clarity. Right? We need it in our health. We need it in our relationships. We need it in our mindset too. Hence why we're doing this. Hence why we can coach, and we are coaches that do that. But at the end of the day, people will pay for clarity. You should pay for clarity with your money, with your health. You should get clarity for where you want to go and the information you need to take in order to get there. And that's what the people like us are here to do. I'm sure you might have people in your circle that can do it, but at the end of the day, reach out to someone, have the conversation. One of my lifelong missions is to make sure that we eliminate this stigma of money. I'm sure there's some other stigmas that you guys are going to want to talk about, but there's a real stigma around money in our country. And I want to eliminate that. I want it to be okay to have a financial conversation with anyone, no matter where you rank, no matter how much money you bring in. It's okay to talk about it. Like, we all deal with money. We all deal with it. So let's just get comfortable talking about it. It wasn't that way for our parents. It wasn't that way for our grandparents. Probably has never been that way in history, but we have to start to normalize a few things. And one of those is the conversation around money. We've got to normalize it because it's going to help so many people. We can't just keep it to ourselves forever. So that's it, guys. Another week of the good life. Again, if you like this, make sure that we set a reminder out every Wednesday. So make sure you put it on your calendar every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We are jumping on here, going live in health, wealth, love, happiness, all of the areas that are going to help you get to the good life. And now, because it's the end, we are jumping on Clubhouse. So for those of you that want to finish up the conversation with us, jump over to Clubhouse, find the room, The Good Life. It's going to be the Good Life After Show. We're going to log in right now, and we're going to dive in even more. Now we can have you guys up on the stage, engage with you, but we want to make sure that we are adding and providing value 100%. So signing off for another week, guys. I love this. This is awesome. This is going to be amazing.
It's powerful, man.
It's good stuff. So we're jumping on Clubhouse. Until next week, keep living the good life.
Hey.
There it is. Later, guys.